listening to the Dr. Nina Show with Dr. Nina Savelle Rocklin, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hi there. Welcome to the Dr. Nina Show, Outsmart Emotional Eating. I'm your host, Dr. Nina Savelle Rocklin. I'm a psychoanalyst and I specialize in eating disorders. I know firsthand what it is like to struggle. I found the cure to binge eating, and now I help people all over the world find food freedom. And on this show, I am here to help you too. Today, we're going to talk about confidence. Now, the diet industry sells us this illusion that if we just lose weight, we will gain confidence. And that is just not true. It is an illusion. But the good news is we can all feel confident regardless of our weight, our age, or the number in our bank accounts. We can feel confident from within. And today I have a very special guest. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest, Jacqueline Hurst. She's going to share the strategies she's used to help thousands of people all over the world nurture self-love, create lasting self-acceptance, and create a deep respect for their own uniqueness. Let me tell you about Jacqueline. She is known as the world's I just made you world. The UK's foremost, but maybe the world's. Why not
let's go for the world. Why not?
She is the world's foremost life coach. She is also an international best-selling author with her book, How to Do You. She's the founder of the Life Class, which is an online school dedicated to life coaching certification and self-development. She is a resident coach and columnist for GQ magazine. She frequently appears in other publications. I could just go on, and then there'd be no time to talk. But let's just say that many public figures, industry leaders, and celebrities praise her unique and sophisticated technique as, quote, the best in the business. And today, she is bringing her expertise to you, to us. So welcome to the show, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much for having me. I still love the fact that, the London, LA thing, and that we can do this, all around the world, like how we can still connect around the world. It still amazes me. I should really get with it, but I just love it. I think it's fantastic. So thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for technology to allow me to be in LA, Jacqueline to be in London, and you guys can see us both, unless you're watching on the Instagram feed in which you can only see me, but you can hear Jacqueline, which is good. So Jacqueline, tell us, you've been really open about your own struggles with food, with weight, body image, all of that. Can you just share about your own journey and how you came to do the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I know that with this channel, it's about food. So I think focusing on that is really important. But, and I think that for me, I went through a lot of things when I was younger. From the age of 15 to 25, I was into drugs and alcohol, anorexia, bulimia, you name it, I did it. And at 25, I got clean, I got sober, and getting clean was one thing, but then after I had got clean, I realized, hang on a minute, I've actually got another massive problem here that I've got to look at, which is my food and my eating. And I think that the food and the eating thing was particularly difficult to get well from, because you've got to eat, right? With drugs and alcohol, as hard as that was, I'm 20 years clean and sober actually this year, which is still surprising to me, and amazing. But I remember that the food journey was particularly tricky, because it was entwined in so much stuff, and I had to do it, 3 times a day, right? But I did recover, and I'm a real believer of, recovery, and I'm a believer of, not labeling ourselves, and I'm a believer that we can get well. Like today, and I help my clients with that as well. I don't have food is just a non-issue. I don't even think about it. And that to me was priceless, to be able to get to that space of it just not being on my mind. It's not a problem. It's a nothing. I feel like that's a huge gift.
Well, what you're describing is actually what I call liberation. because my whole thing with what I do is it's not, what you're eating that's the problem, it's what's eating at you. And it's really looking inside and within, and there's some reason that we turn to food. And liberation, recovery is you're always in recovery, right? You're always that's the kind of like you're in it. Liberation, which is what you just described really eloquently, is actually when you're just done. It's something you used to do, issues with food, and now you don't anymore. And you're living proof that that is possible.
Yeah, and I think also, like you were saying, I mean, of course, there are definitely reasons why we're doing what we're doing. And also, and I'm sure you talk about this on your show as well, like the society that we live in and these, subliminal messages, the messages that our mothers had and our fathers had and their grandparents and their parents' parents and blah, 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 like all the way down of like women have got to be this look, this, age, this size, and then you are worthy and considered to be a woman who's in control. Except usually, to battle to get to this supposed look, I think mainly people are completely out of control to have to try to get there or stay there.
And as I was saying before, like the diet industry sells us this illusion that when we get to that whatever weight, when we get to that look, when we get to whatever, the when then trap, we'll have the confidence we lack. We'll have what we don't have in our lives, that somehow by losing weight, we'll get everything that we don't have in our lives. We'll actually become different people. And so I know that a lot of what you do is helping people become confident and feel good about themselves from the inside, right?
Yeah. Because, and I always say this to my clients, Nina, like, how can it be, if it was just about the weight, right? Like, how could it be that two women could be on the beach, okay? One could be a size 20 and one could be a size 0, okay? How could it be that the size 20, whose mind is 100% in the right place, is having like the best, I'm trying really hard not to swear here, the best time on the beach, like she's having the best day. And the size 0 lady is like freaking out. She's got, oh my God, I've got cellulite. Oh my God, my butt is too big. And I ate tacos last night and now I've got a belly and she's not having a great day. So if it were true that it was the body that gave us confidence, the size and shape of our body that gave us confidence, then what I've just said wouldn't be true. Like it wouldn't even be possible. So it cannot be the shape and size of your body that brings you confidence. And truthfully, again, what I teach my clients is that confidence does not come from anything outside of you. Confidence comes from your mind, right? How you think generates how you feel. Confidence is a feeling. So if I want to feel that way, I got to find ways to think about things that can get me to feel confident.
Absolutely. We say a lot of the same things, maybe using slightly different language, but it's the same core, all roads lead to Rome. So what are some of your, in other words, I love what you're saying, totally on board with it. Exactly. Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to behavior, which is why when you just focus on what you're eating, you never get anywhere. You've got to look at, well, what are the thoughts that lead to the feelings that led to whatever's going on with food? So what are some of the techniques, like your favorite techniques that you use with people to boost their self-confidence if they're not feeling good about themselves, whether it's because of their weight or something else going on in their lives? They're single and they want to be married, or they're married and they're unhappy, or they don't have the job they want, or whatever it is. They just don't feel good about themselves. What are some of the things that you say to them to make them feel better about themselves?
So it's really a process, right? It's not an overnight thing. I think that I'm very spiritual, and I don't believe that I was like put on earth to beat myself up all day. And I'm not sure that I was like put on earth to like compare myself to other people. And I think that when we understand that how we talk to ourselves inside our mind, when we are aware and conscious of what we're thinking and saying to ourselves, that's like the first step of like, how am I talking to myself? And it's really important that we learn to be kind to ourselves. Again, women are not taught this, right? We're not taught this at all. But not being kind to yourself is a choice. And it's a choice that you're choosing. Even though people would be like, I'm not choosing that. Well, actually they are, because it's coming from their thinking.
Which comes from how they were raised. And I should say men also, like men are taught, like, don't be vulnerable, don't have tender feelings, don't cry, boys don't cry. We all get some message that how we feel is somehow wrong. Like, girls are not supposed to be angry, but we get angry at ourselves. To your point, the way we talk to ourselves is so destructive. And guys are not supposed to be vulnerable. So what do we do with these human feelings? Right?
Yeah. And it is really, you know, all of this work I do with people is like, it's a journey back to yourself, and to be able to sit with yourself and feel your feelings and know that your feelings are not going to last forever and that you are going to get through it. And, you know, it can be tough being a human, right? Like, we've got a myriad of feelings, and in moments they can change. But the key is real awareness and consciousness as to what's actually happening in your brain. And that can take some time in the first instance to even be aware, you know, of what we're thinking, like to really start to think about what we're thinking about. It's a practice, right? So I think that, and I also think that, you know, you cannot go from sort of hating yourself to like loving yourself. Like, it's just not realistic. That wasn't, you know, what it was for me, for sure. But what I did understand when I was like on the floor with this was I have to at least accept it. Like, acceptance is the first step to doing anything. And I think that's quite powerful when we can say, look, I don't love my body, but I do accept my body. And I can be grateful that I can, you know, walk and talk and breathe and, you know, I have arms and I have legs and I can move. And like, these things that we take for granted because we're so focused on what we look like, which is so unimportant. I always say, like, what you look like is the least interesting thing about you, like, for sure.
Yeah. Oh no. I before I met my husband, I went on a lot of dates, and I went out with this one guy who was so good looking that when we walked into a room, people looked at him and not me. I was like, really, my ego was bruised. He was so handsome. But you know what? I realized he was kind of boring, and he began to get less and less good looking to me. And then I met someone else who was not like you wouldn't look at him and go like, ooh, that's a hot guy. But the more I got to know him, and the more I grew to like him as a person, the better looking he got. So our perceptions, even of looks, can be influenced by our minds and by our actual experience with people.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you've said, that because it's so true, isn't it? Like, somebody can just look what, you know, what we're told, society tells us this is what you should look like, but it might not float your boat. Like, you know, I don't know. I just feel like we do live in this world that is just consistently, you know, telling us this is what it's got to be, but it's ultimately built on your insecurity. Because if we can tell you that you're not good enough, you're going to buy our products and we're going to get rich on that. And when you start to really understand that, you're like, whoa, I'm not doing that. No.
Yeah, the diet industry is a $60 billion industry because it's selling something that doesn't work. So then it has to sell you a new incarnation of that. Like, oh, all diets fail. So it's perpetuating itself by selling this illusion of confidence through weight loss. So, all right, so thoughts lead to feelings, lead to behavior. To have confidence, you really have to start working on self-acceptance and acceptance of your feelings, feeling your feelings. So here's a question I get a lot. I'm interested in how you answer it, which is, okay, so how do I feel my feelings? Do I just sit through them? Do I just sit in them? We're not taught how to feel our feelings, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that we know our feelings. It's just we're not tuned in. Like, we know something's not right. So it's literally like sitting down and saying, well, what is it that I'm feeling? And where am I feeling this? And where have I felt this before? And maybe, you know, questioning it and doing it really gently. Like, it doesn't have to be such a serious thing. It can be done with a little bit of lightness to it, just to start to understand yourself better, I think is really important. not being connected to your soul is a really uncomfortable place to live.
Yeah. Oh, that's a powerful statement right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the connection is what matters, the connection of you and you. And it's really about tuning out a lot of the white noise and being, authentic to who you are. I think that's really, really important.
And what comes through a lot in your book is this idea of self-acceptance. In fact, you just touched on it, just like it's really hard to go from hating yourself to loving yourself, and it's also really hard to just love yourself. And that's why I love your idea of self-acceptance, because it encompasses, hey, there are things I like about myself, things I love about myself, things I want to change about myself, whether that's your your body, your personality, your state of life, or whatever, and to be able to hold both.
100% is really important. And also, think about it. If we were living in different places, if we were living in not Iceland, but I mean, anywhere, I could use a million different ones, so I won't get specific. But if you're living in a country that's not westernized, let's put it like that, then a lot of the things that you're thinking you should be would not even be in your mind. They just wouldn't even be in your mind. It just wouldn't. And that to me is also really interesting, that it tells me that where I live, it tells me that, oh my God, I've got to follow the crowd and be that thing. But actually, if I lived in a whole different country with a whole different culture, then the size of my butt wouldn't make any difference. It wouldn't matter. And maybe in some places, it's completely the opposite. Like, the shorter the neck, the more beautiful you are, right? Or the bigger your feet, the more beautiful. There are places like that. So what does that tell us? It tells us that we are we are living in this kind of place that is just all about consumption. And it's all about, as I said before, buy this thing and then you're going to be better. Be this. It's like anti-aging, which always really winds me up, because you're meant to age, right? You're human. You're going to age.
Yeah. Yes.
Why does everything have to be anti-aging? What's wrong with aging? What's wrong with that?
And in some cultures, maybe not recently, but it used to be, the older you were, the more revered you were. Like in Asian cultures, the more you look like, you're straight out of National Geographic, the more like, oh, you're wise. That's probably changed of late. But what you're talking about is basically challenging the societal rules that we just take as truisms. Like,
yeah, because who's telling me to be thin, right? When I really break it down, okay, who is telling me? Who is saying to me, you need to be size 0 to be worthy, to be accepted, to be seen as this woman in control? Like, who is saying that to me? Who's saying that? Oh, wait, magazines, beauty companies, diet companies. Who's saying that to me? It's a bit like kind of, as women, we like to glam up, okay? And there was a whole thing, where there's like women have hair extensions, lash extensions, and then there's, the eyelash thing, the eyebrow thing, And it's like, I noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but I definitely noticed during COVID, more and more women were like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm just going to be more me, and I'm going to take out my hair extensions. I'm going to take off my lash extensions, and, et cetera, things like this. And what was really interesting to me was that the more that women are doing that, the more men are like, yeah, I love women that are natural. Like, it's really cool. Except we had been told consistently, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this to be beautiful. But again, the whole reason I'm saying that is, who's telling us that? Who is saying I have to have all of those things to be beautiful? And the thing is, nobody outside of me gets to decide that other than me. I get to decide if I think I am, and I get to decide if I think I'm not. Because ultimately, when we learn to step away from what other people think and make that, our religion, then we're free.
Well, what you're describing is true confidence, being the decider of your enoughness.
Yeah.
That comes from within and not from without, with these societal messages of look like this, have this, buy this, drive this, live here, though, as that is the arbiter of your enoughness.
Right. I was having this conversation the other day with someone about, like, we were saying, skinny jeans are not in right now. But if Rihanna puts on a pair of skinny jeans, oh my God, skinny jeans are back in, everyone. Like, why? Why do we live like that? Like, if you like skinny jeans, wear skinny jeans,
Yes, it's being able to resist the culture and decide for ourselves what do I like, what do I not like, what do I feel comfortable in, as opposed to a culture, a society that can be mercurial. I mean, it could change, deciding for us how we should think about ourselves.
Exactly what I'm saying. Exactly right.
So what do you say to someone who says, like, I intellectually know this, I get it on a rational perspective, but I can't, like, go from my head to my heart. I can't quite get on board with the feeling of it. Like, I want to, but I can't. How do you guide people who are stuck in that place of they know what they know, but they can't just, they sort of flip the switch?
That's where I talk about, in quotes, doing the work, which means get a coach and help yourself to get there, because that's what coaching's about. Like, when people walk into my office, that's exactly what they say. Or walk into my office, or I don't have an office, I do a lot online or in person, but it's really important to invest in doing that work, because you do not want to spend a life going, I know this, but, like, no, life's too short for that. And it requires work. It requires, it's what I say, like, books are great and podcasts are great and radio things are great, but you've got to actually step into doing your own work to understand how your brain is ticking so that you can make those changes. Because there is a difference between logically going, I get it logically, but how do I? And that's where the work comes in. And that's where coaching is really, really helpful, because that's how you learn how to change the how-to.
But, so I'm a psychoanalyst, which no one was any kind of a therapist or a coach. But, back in the day, it was only psychoanalysis, and it was actually called the work.
Right. I didn't know that.
Work. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because it is, isn't it? Because it takes work to do the work, right?
It's easier to focus on what you are eating or not eating than it is to feel things that you want to feel and process emotions you don't want to process and think about things you don't want to think about. But, like, it's there, whether you're actively thinking it or not. The unthought thoughts are still affecting you. So that's why ultimately it's so important to do the work, whether it's in coaching or in another way. And you can only do it with someone else, right? Like, you can't have an objective view of your subjective experience.
Was it Einstein that said, like, you can't fix the same problem? You can't fix the problem with the same brain that created it.
Let's go with okay.
I think so. I can't be sure, but I think so. But it's a great saying, because I felt like that too. It's like, we can be these really strong, independent people, that have, like, really got our stuff together in life. But then we have things like this where we're, like, not together at all. And we're like, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. But there's things that you might just want to start looking at.
And that kind of brings me to the flip side of confidence, which is shame. Like, a lot of people want to feel confident because really they want to cover up their shame. Radamez, I know I'm butchering your name. You know who I'm talking about, Radamez. Oh, I'm sorry. He says, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them.
Thank you. Yeah.
Randy, I want to call you by your real name. So I'm live streaming on Instagram. So, by the way, if you're on Instagram watching this or watching me and hearing Jacqueline, you can feel free, like Randy just did, to drop a comment. But I want to use your real name, so I'm just gonna have to learn how to say Radamez. Am I butchering it? I think maybe I am. Okay. Apologies. So shame. So shame is we feel bad about who we are.
The worst.
Yeah, it's so insidious.
Yeah.
So tell me about, how do you approach the experience of shame?
Ew, shame is like I think of all the feelings, shame is like right up there being the worst. The worst. Like shame and fear, right? But shame is such a uncomfortable feeling, and it can lead to really, it can lead to really crazy actions, right? Like we can do a lot of crazy things with that feeling. And the thing about shame is, one of the things I definitely learned about shame was that when I started to talk to somebody about what had happened and why I had shame, and that person was safe, to talk to, it really helped. And as a coach, when people talk to me about their shame, what always amazes me is how people feel that it's only them that have done the thing or felt that way, and it's not, right? Like we're all human, we all do things, and some of us do things we're not proud of, and we learn from those experiences. But shame is a really, really heavy one. It's a real negative one, and it's one that I would always suggest to people, you've got to talk about it. You've got to talk about it in a safe space so that you can learn from it and not beat yourself up. Like there's no point beating yourself up. It doesn't get you anywhere. I always say to my clients, like, leave your whip in my office, like hand it over, give it to me. Like I'll have that. Because what are we learning if we keep doing that? Like I always say, when you judge yourself, you miss the lesson. And there's a lesson in everything, but if you're so busy judging, you're never going to learn.
Yeah. When you judge yourself, you miss the lesson. Exactly. And whose voice are we judging ourselves? Like learning how we came to shame ourselves. When you were talking about, hey, we all do the things and we think we're the only one, it makes me think about this, one of my groups, all women who struggle with binge eating disorder. And one of them one day got the courage to share that she would go down to the trash in the middle of the night and take out food that had been thrown away and eat it in secret. And she just thought she was like a despicable, shameful human because of this. And every single person in this group was like, I've done that.
Right. How powerful is that?
Oh, it was so powerful. And it just mitigated the shame for her and for everybody. When you realize whatever the thing is that you think that you're doing that's so horrible, maybe it's not. Like we need, to your point, like, yes, we need to have witnesses to this who can give us reassurance and a different perspective.
Also, how, goes back, this conversation is cyclical, but like, we would never talk to our friends the way we talk to ourselves, right? So this lady who did that, I'm sure that her inner voice was like really bad. You're disgusting. What is wrong with you? You're never going to, get anywhere with this. You've got a problem. But like, we can all imagine it, right? But yet, if her friend said to her, hey, I went down and I took the cake out the bin and I ate it and did it, she's never going to say that to her friend. She's going to be like, sweetie, it's okay. Don't worry. Like, let's talk about it. What was happening for you? Do you need to get some help? Like, we're so kind and loving in those instances to other people. And that's like the first step of the work I do with people is like, if you're not going to say the shit you say to the shizzle you say to your, to yourself, if you're not going to say that to me, right? You're not going to sit here and say that to me. It is over. That party is over. And you cannot say that to yourself. And that is like homework week 1. Like, be aware of that. And, they normally come back and they're like, wow, I cannot believe how mean I am to myself, It's like, well, then no wonder you feel awful and then want to put your head in a cake, right? Like, these little things all add up.
And even the word you, when like, you're so disgusting, when we're talking to ourselves saying, oh, you're this and you're that. Often I tell people to change that to I, because that you is usually the inner critic. And would you say like, oh, I'm so disgusting? I mean, some people would, but it can also be a real wake-up call, like, oh, wow, that is critical.
Yeah, it's so not helpful.
Yeah. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to anybody else. And we shame ourselves. And so I guess, so once people say, okay, I'm on board, I am mean to myself, I'm shaming myself, no wonder I don't feel good about myself. Oh wait, there's a question. Let me get to it. Let me interrupt myself and get to the question. if opulent recover from if I could recover from shame, I think it would be a bathing suit season at the beach. I feel exposed, and if I could recover from shame, it would be bathing suit season at the beach. I feel exposed and vulnerable at the beach. So what would you say to someone who says, I just feel so exposed and vulnerable, I can't even go to the beach because it's too mortifying an experience? How could I have more confidence?
There is so much to say, but I'm going to say something that's going to sound really rude, and I don't mean it in a rude way at all, but I'm going to put it out there. Like, when that person is at the beach, nobody else cares. Nobody cares about this lady in her bathing suit because they're all so interested in themselves and their bathing suits. And that's a really important thing to know. We often are self-obsessed in a way. We're so obsessed with self that we live half a life because we're worried about what other people, like how they're going to judge us, what they're going to think of us, But no one really cares about us that much. And I remember when I learned that, I was like, wait, what? What do you mean nobody cares that much about me? Everybody does. But actually, they don't at all. They don't.
Yeah, she's saying, I feel like everyone's looking for sure. So, you may be projecting your own harsh view of yourself into the people at the beach back at you.
Like, right? Definitely. Definitely.
So what do you do when you, okay, so she knows now people aren't looking at her, it's her own stuff, but it still feels scary to go to the beach. What would you say her next step should be?
I would say that if she woke up tomorrow and someone said to her, this is your last day on earth, would you not go to the beach?
Moon dance? Would you go to the beach? So to have some perspective and to get grounded more about, like, what do you want, as opposed to what are people thinking of you? How are you being judged? What do you want? What is the experience you want?
We're not here for very long, Nina. None of us, right? None of us have a like get out of jail card free. Like, we're all going the same way, okay? And none of us know when or where or how. And I'm just not sure that ruining your own day because of what you think other people are going to think is a good idea. And because none of us know how long we've got, life is a real gift. It's a real gift. We are so lucky to be alive. Because when you don't have your health, you really realize that. So you get choices every day of how you want to think and feel and what you want to do. And you can either live your life hiding, or you can live your life and say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to the beach. And it's your choice of what you want to do. And we have choices every minute of every day. Now, if this lady wants to try that, she doesn't have to be sitting on the beach all day. She could just try for like 10 minutes. And then she's tried. And it's like all of these things are whether we're going to, push ourselves through this stuff with the right thinking or not.
She's saying, I just wish I could put the shame away. She would like to go and have fun, but she just wishes she could put the shame away.
So I don't know what the shame is about, and I'm not sure that she would want to go into that live on air. But I think that talking to somebody about whatever the shame is a really, really, really important thing to do. Because you can't be carrying that much shame to the point where you don't want to go to the beach. Like love yourself into getting a little bit of help so that you can unlock, the door onto that and just find a way to have much more freedom around it. Like, she should be at the beach. I'm sure she's a lovely person. She deserves to be at that beach. She deserves it, and I'm sure that her friends are probably all saying the same,
All right, you're being very vulnerable here. She says she's overweight. She weighs 250 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the shame. That's the source of the shame.
Okay, well, she doesn't have to have shame around that because she hasn't done anything wrong. Nothing is wrong. She is not wrong, right? The only thing that's wrong is the society that she lives in. Now, you can
society, yeah,
right. So you can either take your 250-pound beautiful body to the beach with the right mindset, or you can take your 250-pound body at home and leave it at home and let society win.
Yeah, it's shame. So, and Randy, I'm not going to butcher his name anymore, is saying it's shame about the roles. I get that too. And she's saying it's embarrassing. But if you listen to Jacqueline, that is a construct that in which the spotlight is on you, and maybe you wouldn't feel the sun and the sand and the ocean any differently if you were at a lower weight. What do you think, Jacqueline?
I just don't think it's about weight, right? I think it's about mindsets. And I think when you get your mind in the right way and you understand what's happening for you, that's how you gain your confidence. So, like, as I said, you're either going to sit on the beach being like, oh my God, people are looking, this is embarrassing. Or you're going to say, I don't care what people think. I'm never even going to meet these people. I don't even know who they are. And maybe this guy that's walking past me is sleeping with his secretary and he's a bad person. And maybe this woman, doesn't talk to her mom and, whatever. Like, everyone's got stuff. So it's like, people are not going to be judging you all day long. It's you judging you. And that's the thing that you have to work on. So you start to remove the judgment, find some love for yourself, learn how to do all of this. And then naturally your body goes to wherever it's meant to be. And at that point, it doesn't even matter because you're confident in yourself.
She's saying, thank you. I will go to the beach.
Woo, woo, woo.
Let us know. Please let us know how it goes.
Absolutely. And she should be sitting there, like, with a mantra in her mind, which is like, I deserve to be here. I am beautiful. I have every right to be who I am, to take up space, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? Nobody cares. No one cares.
Yeah. Think in terms of the experience, right? What is the experience? Not what about the people? I love what you said. These are people that we give them so much power. They're going to judge us, but we don't know these people. We're never going to see these people again. Why do we hand them the keys to our self-esteem? No, take those keys back.
I love it.
Very empowering.
It's choices, right, Nina? Like, that's the point. And I think when you really understand that it's a choice and you really understand that, you can make a choice that makes you feel bad, or you can make a choice that makes you feel okay. When you understand that that power is in your hands, you start to make better choices.
It's a matter of feeling deserving often, right? Of taking back that power and of being the decider of your enoughness, as opposed to giving it to others.
Absolutely. You get to decide that. It's powerful.
Sure is. Our minds are so powerful, and perception is reality. So if our perception is, oh, everyone is staring at us and thinking bad things for whatever reason, then we're going to feel terrible and want to hide from the world. But if our perception is people are just living their lives, what do I think of them? Then we have a totally different experience of life. Our minds are so powerful.
100%. And that's why you've got to learn to use them properly. Like, we aren't taught this stuff at school. I always say that, right? Like no one taught me how to use my mind and understand my emotions. I got taught maths and geography. Neither am I very good at, by the way. But no one said, hey, Jacqueline, this is how your emotions work. And this is how you need to think about things so that, you learn to feel okay with whatever's going on. Like no one taught me that. And I think that learning how to use our minds are really, really, really important. And, it's very important work because you want to be somebody that can handle any situation in a way that's calm and peaceful, not like panicky, worried, stressed, shame, guilt. Like those negative feelings, they just don't feel good. And when you learn how to use your mind, you can change that.
The power is within you.
1,000%.
Yeah. All right. So we've been talking about our relationship with ourselves. We have about 10 more minutes. I also want to touch on like recognizing toxicity in relationships with others. Sometimes we can be super toxic to ourselves, but what about, and when we're toxic to ourselves, I guess it's easy to be in relationships where we tolerate bad treatment from others. But what about relationships with other people and how that affects our confidence?
The relationship with ourselves is the most important one, because when we learn to accept ourselves and then in turn like ourselves, we don't put ourselves in any place to have relationships that are uncomfortable or toxic, because we have self-respect and self-worth and self-esteem. So when people do things that don't align with our morals and our values, we just step away. So it comes down to self. And this is what I teach clients all the time. It's never, ever, ever about anyone else. It's never about the situation, what someone says, what someone does. We never blame. And instead of pointing our finger at them, we've got to point our finger at ourselves and be like, okay, what's happening for me here? Like, why am I triggered? Why did that annoy me? What's going on? Why am I allowing that? Why is this person in my life? What's happening here? Have I got something wrong? Do I think they maybe aren't aligning with me? Like, you've got to look at you and your part in that, rather than like, oh my God, that person was so mean to me, right?
Yeah, that blaming just keeps people in a victim mode, but explaining is a catalyst for change. Like, oh, I am tolerating this judgmental person in my life because it reminds me of my judgmental mother. That's why I am tolerating this relationship. Let me look at that in the service of change, rather than they're so judgmental.
Yeah. And it's a process, right? Like, again, none of us get this, done, ticked off the box overnight, got it, right? Like, no, my journey was definitely not like that. I had to experience things many times, like, isn't there that lovely saying, like, the universe will keep sending you the messages until you get the message, right? Like, I've had that a lot,
Well, we also, Randy has one more thing to say, but before I read that, it's also, that's how we learn. Like when babies learn to walk, they don't just get up and walk, and we don't expect them to. We don't just say, oh, that baby walked and fell down. Well, that's it. Baby's never going to walk. What a failure that baby is at walking. We right. Go, you got it. You can do it again. And they've got to try again and again and again and again. And somewhere along the line, we forget, hey, that's how we learn. We have to do it over and over and over and over. That's how we learn to do anything. And we just think, oh my gosh, I tried and I failed. Well, that's it. I'm a failure.
I just don't believe in the word failure at all, Nina. I just don't believe in it. It's like, it's all lessons. It's all lessons. Like, I always say, like, Serena Williams never like won that many matches by winning every single match. Right? Like, she had to lose to be like, okay, I need to do this better. I need to do that better. I've got to be, more aware of this thing or that thing. Like, how else do we get there? Like, why do we think not getting it right is wrong? It's not, like, at all.
It's all opportunities for learning. I just want to read what Randy said. He says, I also think people from larger cities go about more carefree. Everyone minds their own business. People from a smaller town or a country where society is more nosy, like where I grew up, are more self-conscious. When I visited New York, it was quite a culture shock. So Randy, are you saying that where you're from, there's more of a everyone is actually looking at you, and you feel more self-conscious because it's a smaller community and everyone's in everyone's business, and it was easier in New York? We'll see what he says. But either way, does it matter, Jacqueline?
No, once your mind is right, it doesn't matter where you are. It really doesn't matter, right? You could, walk into a place where everybody knows you and they could look you up and down and you can giggle or not. Like, it's completely your decision. Yeah. That's why it's so powerful to do the work, right?
Yeah.
Do the work.
So it's eventually well, what do I think of? What do I think? What do I feel? What is my experience, rather than what are you thinking of me?
Yeah. And also, like, what do I think? What's my experience? Blah, 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 blah. Like, all of that is way more important than what someone else thinks. And, people do that a lot. Like, what the other person thinks is more important, and also they must be right and I must be wrong. Like, where did you learn that?
So Randy's saying where he's from, you walk into a restaurant, everyone looks at you and you hear people gossiping. Oh my gosh, where are you from? In New York, nobody bats an eye.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, I always say, like, have they not got anything else to do, these people? Like, am I that like special?
What is it they say about publicity? There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah,
if they're talking about you, it's all good.
Yeah, and I think it's sad as well. Like, if that's what people want to do, if that's all they want to do is talk about you, like, maybe, like, I don't know, leave them $20 and be like, here's a book fund. Like, go and educate, like, do something.
Yeah. All right. He's from Puerto Rico, but he lives in Florida now. Yeah. But wherever you go, there you are.
Right. So you might as well learn to like yourself, because you got a long time with yourself.
Yeah. If we're lucky, we have a long time with ourselves.
Right. So we don't want to be not going to the beach.
All right. Well, Jacqueline, this has been such an inspiring conversation. If there's any, like, one golden nugget you'd like to share, like one basic message from our conversation today, what would you want to tell people?
I'm a real believer that you can do and be and have anything you want to do and be and have. And if you're living a life where you're not comfortable or happy, or something's bothering you, do yourself the greatest favor and work on it so that you make the change, because you're worth it.
I love that. So tell us, how can people find you?
So you can find me for private coaching online at jacquelinehurst.com. You can join my school if you want to do a course for yourself and learn how to get your head right, kind of effortlessly and easily online. And there's a course there called the Foundation Course. You can study to become a life coach. I train people to do what I'm doing. That's the Certified Life Coach course. And you can buy my book, which is on Amazon, and it's called How to Do You.
Here it is, How to Do You, for those of you who are watching. Yeah, and I love how you have turned your own story into the success that you talk about. When you say you can create whatever you want, you are the master of your universe, essentially. You're not just saying that as I believe it. You're saying it because you have actually done it. You live it. It's the principles that you are talking about is exactly what has changed your own life.
Absolutely.
And that's what I really appreciate about your message.
I think that's important that people understand that I'm not just sitting here going, hey, this is what you should do, without having any backbone to that. Like, my life was literally, rock bottom, like many times over, living in, a squat with nothing, to the life that I lead today, having, the businesses that I have and the life that I lead and the friendships that I have. And, I'm so blessed and I'm so grateful. And gratitude is such a big thing for me. And to be alive is, I shouldn't be here many times over. So I'm so grateful. And I just want to share that I got here through the power of my brain, right? It's not a magic wand, right? But the power of my brain. So if you've got a brain, you can do this work. And that's what I want to share with people. Like, it's all possible to change.
I love that. The power is within you. Thank you, Jacqueline Hurst, for being here on the Dr. Nina Show. I am so glad that you joined us. And that was a really fast 50 minutes. That is our show for today. I can't believe how fast that went.
Thank you so much.
And I'm here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, or you can listen later on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts. Stay curious, not critical, and remember, the power is within you. I'll see you next week.
Bye.
You're listening to the Dr. Nina Show with Dr. Nina Savelle Rocklin, only on LA Talk Radio.